Hello folks, Steve James here from the F1 Manager community team, and I'm here with Lloyd Morgan-Moore to discuss a little bit about F1 Manager 2023. As you may have seen, we've announced the game recently. We wanted to wrap up everything to provide you with a little bit of insight into everything that we've already revealed so far. How you doing, Lloyd?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you.
Good, okay, we're going to get straight into it because I know everyone's very excited to hear what we've got to reveal.
Yeah.
We've already talked about a lot, and we wanted to sort of consolidate it all into one place to give everyone a bit of an insight into where we were.
Sure.
So let's get straight into it with revised driver development.
One of the key things we had community feedback on in F1 Manager 22 was the driver development and how that's handled. So what we've done for this year's version of the game is we've removed what we previously had, which was the skill points, if you like,
Yeah.
and we've instead replaced this with the driver focus area. So team principals can now set a focus area for their driver's development, whether that be something like wheel-to-wheel action, whether that be things like wet track racing, and as long as the driver performs well, they'll actually gain some skill in those particular areas, and this will enable you to obviously choose exactly where you want their focus to be, rather than just clicking and spending points on the screen, as it were. And we've also added a little bit of a system that means drivers, as they get slightly older or spend less time in the car, will actually need to keep their skills up. So there's a chance that their skills will slowly degrade over time, and
Nice.
they'll need to spend time in the driver's seat. You know, they'll need to be performing well in order to keep those skills fresh and keep their skill levels up. And this means that team principals now have an option. Do they want to continue to keep these drivers on their team, you know, keep them performing well, or do they want to start looking towards the new generation of drivers from F2 and F3 series, for example?
Awesome, thank you. That's really good because that was one of the sort of key community points, one of the things
absolutely.
that we had a lot of feedback on. So that's a really nice change. I think especially, like you said, there's going to be a lot of options for, do you keep that older veteran? You know, are they starting to perform a little bit less than you would have liked them to? That's going to be quite interesting to see. It'd be really interesting to see on our sort of social channels as well, because we get a lot of posts about that kind of thing. So awesome. Okay, and that leads very nicely into our next section about Formula 2 and Formula 3 seasons being simulated. So this year we have fully simulated Formula 2 and Formula 3 championships, and as well as that, players can now also see the per race results for each driver, which I think is a really nice addition. Again, community feedback kind of told us that people wanted to see those championships, so a really nice little addition that I think makes a big difference to overall gameplay, because that's going to affect your scouting and all of that when you can actually see the results of those drivers, and the drivers themselves will actually, their skills will increase based on how they've performed, won't they? Which is a really nice touch.
Yeah, so the drivers will develop based on the fully simulated seasons of F2 and F3, and obviously that then means you can keep an eye on certain drivers. You can use their previous race results to really dig into which tracks they excel on, and base your scouting off that if you've got a particular weak point in your team. But also one of the cool things we've done for 2023 is we've introduced the option to hire drivers and staff for the end of the season, or mid-season. So, you know, the choice is up to you now whether you want to stick with certain people or you can swap them out straight away.
That's fantastic. It means you can have your own silly season in the game as well, with all of the crazy transfers happening at the end of the season rather than immediately. Again, another piece of community sort of feedback that we received that it's really nice to see we managed to get in there. So yeah, awesome. Okay, and that kind of leads us on nicely then to our next section, which is about the new sporting director role. If we could jump into that a little bit and find out what the sporting director does and what that means for the pit crew. Okay, yeah, so new for 2023 is the sporting director role, another key staff member to focus on with your hiring and firing, and they are kind of responsible for all the trackside stuff during a race. So I guess the pit crew training is going to be kind of focused around them and how they work. So your sporting director is going to have their own performance ratings and their own development areas to work on as well, and that's going to sort of play into the actual training regimes that they can provide the team, right?
Yeah, so the training regimes themselves, we've also dug into in a lot more depth. So when it comes to your pit crew, you can actually set the training regimes based on multiple different sections of a pit stop. So, you know, it's not just a case of doing the fastest pit stop possible. You also want to do things like reduce mistakes. With 2023, you can actually dig into that on a day-by-day basis, or you can choose, if you want to set up an automatic training regime, you can do that. But it allows you to really dig down into what you want your pit crew to focus on, whether that be reducing pit stop errors, whether that's the pit stop times, which can get you on the fastest pit stop leaderboards, or whether that's little things like focusing on the releasing the car from the jacks, for example. You can really drill down into that detail. And what we allow you to do is you can actually set the training regime based on day-by-day and morning or afternoon basis. So, if you want your pit stop crew to focus on going to the gym for most of the month, then you can absolutely do that. But you have to also keep in mind fatigue, because obviously a fatigued pit stop crew is more likely to make mistakes, and you need to make sure you give them the right amount of time to rest before a big race, so that they're fresh and ready to go for the vital pit stops in the race.
So another new thing for 2023, some inbox upgrades as well. So deeper staff dilemmas and deeper team dilemmas. You've got a wide variety of these. I think one of the first ones we've got is the factory fire. That's a risk that can happen and really throw off your team there. So you're going to have to balance these things across maybe multiple email chains as well, across multiple weeks, which is another nice added bit of depth there, I think.
Yeah, so this is one thing that we've introduced that can keep you on your toes, as it were. So your reaction to something in one of these emails might then have an impact on things in the future. So you've really got to keep in mind what your feedback is there and what your answer is. But alongside that, we've also introduced press emails. So we have an easier way to keep on top of what other teams are up to. So you'll get a roundup of what the other teams are currently working on and what sort of progress they've made. And it just means you can really sort of keep an eye on what the other teams are up to and adapt accordingly. Yeah,
that's awesome, because that's really going to sort of play into building out that world that you're in and kind of creating the universe around you a little bit more, I think, which is really, really cool. And there's been some changes and improvements to the car part development area of the game as well, hasn't there?
Yeah, so we've got multiple improvements to this area. The primary one that you're going to see is the idea of part durability. So there is now a durability stat, which means you can play off the idea of how long your part should last. Obviously, if you want a part to last longer, it might be slightly heavier, which means you get a little bit less performance from it. And to back this up, you also have the idea of inspections of parts. So if a part is less durable, there's a higher chance it will fail the inspection, and you'll have to go away and develop a few more parts, obviously at your cost.
Yeah, and that's going to lead sort of into your cost cap balancing Absolutely. As well, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. So that kind of covers us for our sort of the management side of the F1 manager experience for the time being. Let's get a little bit into the sort of race side of things and talk about a few of the changes that we've made in the race area. So as part of the upgrades to the sort of race side of things for F1 Manager 2023, we now have sprint events. Sprint events are in the game. So this is less about pit strategy, as there's less laps, so you're less likely to have to worry about undercuts and overcuts. But it is still quite a crucial thing for teams and drivers. So a little bit more about risk management and how you kind of handle the options available in a race, right? Yeah.
So this is, as you mentioned, it's less about pit stop strategies. It's generally you stand one set of tyres. It's much more about things like risk management, it's more about things like driver performance, and you really have to keep an eye on your tyre temperatures as well.
Okay, all right, and that kind of leads nicely into the fact that we've also got some tyre temperature change. What a lovely segue, Lloyd.
Yeah,
you look so good at this. So the tyre temperatures we've kind of added a little bit more to as well. So we have a full-on thing with the surfaces and the carcasses, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So we simulate the surface and the carcass temperatures, and what you'll find is that there's now more of an emphasis than ever on the heat in those tyres. So this comes down to essentially multiple things. So whether that's your drivers being told to push on the track, it comes down to things like the track temperatures. If you're at a hot track, for example, you may have to manage your tyres a little bit better to make sure they don't overheat, which will obviously reduce performance. And the carcass temperature is obviously something that you need to keep an eye on in those situations, because it won't just rise and fall very quickly. You can build up heat over a long period of time, and so you need to manage not only your current pace, but also how aggressive your drivers are being with things like the overtaking and defending, which ties in nicely to all of the driver commands and things that are also present in the game.
So again, that kind of segues quite nicely. It's almost as if we planned this into the new driver confidence system. So if people have had a look at the screenshots that have been out there, the video out there that we've got so far, they may have seen this new bar that in race weekends, there's a new bar above all of your kind of management systems for driver confidence. Can you shed a little bit of light on that for us, Lloyd?
Yeah, so driver confidence is something that will affect your race weekends, and it essentially boils down to your driver has obviously different experiences on track each time they go out, and what happens on track will determine how confident they are. So starting in practice, you can really get that confidence built up. If they've got a lot of confidence in the setup of the car, that will then carry through into qualifying, into the race, and what you decide to do on track in terms of your tactics and your deployment of things like ERS, telling them whether to push for overtakes or hold back will obviously increase or decrease that confidence. And this adds an extra layer of strategy to the game, because you need to think very carefully about what those drivers are going to be doing on track. Good example of this is if you tell a driver to overtake and they complete a successful dive up the inside, their confidence is going to increase, and you'll see that happen live on the bar. It's really cool to see that instant feedback. But at the same time, if they fail to make that overtake, it might impact their confidence negatively. So you need to carefully think about what you're going to do on track, and if you push enough and have those successful overtakes and successful fast laps, you can actually boost that confidence up and get your driver into a bit of a flow state and see their performance increase throughout a race.
So let's take a wider look at the sort of general racing simulation that people can expect to see in F1 Manager 2023.
Yeah, so the racing simulation has been improved in a number of ways. I think one of the most obvious ones is the use of the track width. If you've got a driver who's confident with good tyre condition, they will really use as much of the track as possible, driving onto aggressive curbs, things like that. But at the same time, if you want to pull them back a little bit, if they've got perhaps low confidence and you don't want them to push as hard, you'll see that reflected in the racing line. But you'll also see things like more corner battles, so cars going through corners side by side for multiple corners as they try and get into the position. Things like corner collisions as well, as the drivers go wheel to wheel.
First corner collisions as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So as they're all
fantastic.
charging towards that first corner, you're going to see a lot more action there. But also on that, if a driver does have a spin out, for example, there's improvements to the recovery there, and there's also improvements to rejoining the circuit if they maybe go a little bit wide or mess up on a corner.
Awesome, yeah. Again, these are all just little things I think that add up to be quite big things actually, and as part of the community feedback, these kind of tick a lot of boxes I think, which is really exciting. I think it does add up to be quite a cohesive experience.
Yes.
All right, so let's wrap it up with one final thing. Players will have seen that we've kind of hinted at this new mode, race replay, for 2023 as well. Can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, so race replay is a new mode. It's a new way to play the game, and it really brings you closer to the action of the current 2023 F1 Championship. You'll be able to essentially relive key moments throughout the season, and it just gets you that little bit closer to things that are actually going on live in the real world. It's a really cool addition, and I'm excited to see what people make of it.
Awesome, yeah. We're going to have a little bit more information on that in the coming weeks. That about does it for now. So we'll wrap it up there. That just about covers, I think, everything so far that we've revealed about the game. We're going to have more information and sort of closer looks at some of these features as well over the coming weeks. So stay tuned to our social channels for now. Thank you very much, Lloyd, for your time and very wise information.
Thank you.
And we'll see you very, very soon across the social channels for F1 Manager 2023, coming this summer.